Hello and welcome to the Graphic 45 YouTube channel. My name is Lynn, or LV Handcrafted here on YouTube, and today I am going to make a book box. And I'm going to decorate my book box with the Deluxe Collector's Edition Cafe Parisian, which is gorgeous. And these book boxes are kind of fantastic because they are great for gifting something small. And in fact, the reason why I got it is because these book boxes are fantastic for they perfectly fit a set of USA 2 size cards with their matching envelopes. And I like to any cards that I make, especially during the holiday season, if I have cards left over, what I like to do is maybe sort them into sets that are themed or make some sort of sense to go together and give them away as gift sets. And so a book box like this is really fantastic because you can put a little gift inside, but as well, when the gift recipient is done using whatever is inside, they actually have a pretty nice trinket box that they can use to store whatever they like. So it's almost a two-in-one gift, where the gift is what you're giving inside, as well as the container or the box that you're giving it in. So I really, really like this book box for that reason. So what I'm doing here is just measuring some pieces of mat board. And mat board, if you're not familiar with it, it's just thicker paper essentially, but it's a lot of layers of compressed paper. So it's got a lot of structure to it. It's got some good thickness to it. And what I'm using specifically is often used to mat photos when you go to frame them, for example. And I found a very good price point on a box of mat board that, as you can tell here, actually has color on one side and is white on the opposite side, and is also white core. So being colored on one side is really fantastic because if you want to stretch your pattern papers, stretch your gorgeous Deluxe Collector's Edition papers, I love using these colored mat boards for that, because I just pick a coordinating solid color, and then I don't even have to worry about covering that side with pattern paper, especially for box projects like these, because that's just going to go on the inside. And what I'm using to cut my pieces is a scoreboards die by Eileen Hall, and it's actually called Book Box. And these pieces here will be the sides, so the top, the bottom, and the two sides of our box. And with scoreboards dies, they cut and score at the same time. Scoring, in this case with the material as thick as mat board, really just means that it's cutting mostly through that mat board. So it will cut the top layer, it'll cut one layer, whatever layer or side is touching the blade. But the blade is recessed in that kind of thick platform there, so that it actually can't reach all the way through to the other side. So just imagine that the steel that is cutting your edges is at one level, and the steel that is going to score your material is kind of nestled in a little bit deeper, and that way it doesn't cut through quite as much. And so that's how, the scoreboard's dies are a little bit different than your standard Biggs dies. And it's great because that means that, and you'll see this a little bit closer, when we go to attach the sides of the box, the edges of those boxes have glue tabs on them that are already scored for us. So it makes assembly of a project like this just so much easier. Now, on these two pieces, what I've already done, I should say, is that I have lined the white side of my mat board with some double-sided adhesive, which I buy by the sheet. And I've flipped through some of the 8x8 Cafe Parisian papers to pick the papers that I want as my front and back of my box, or I should say the top and bottom of my box. But it looks like a book, which is why it's called book box. So that's why I keep on calling it the front and the back. And so with my pieces covered with adhesive, I've lined them with the pattern papers that I've chosen, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine with the pattern paper facing the blade so that I get a really nice finished edge on that side. So the piece I cut first right there, that is going to be the back or the bottom of my box, and this piece here will be the front or the top of my box. If you've trimmed your pieces like I have to where it's kind of a close fit, you do want to consider taping your material to the die, because it's such a thick material. It can shift a little bit on you, and so you just don't want to have that move on you as you're running it through your die cutting machine. But it's really fantastic that these Biggs dies and these scoreboards dies can cut through such thick material. And so now I almost have all of my pieces done. The last thing I'm going to do is actually cut what will be the spine. So this is this material that I'm using here is actually called fabric leather. It's from a brand called Craftex, and I'm cutting it to 2 1/4 I'm going to just measure the height, or I'm going to double check the height of this. So it's 6.5. So I'm going to cut this to 2 1/4 by 6.5. And why am I using this? Well, the scoreboards die, the book box die, does have a section of that that platform that will cut out this piece for you. I'm choosing to cut it out of this paper leather because it's a look that I prefer. Because if you use mat board for this piece here, it's basically going to score lines from the top to the bottom. And the reason for that is to allow it to curve a little bit. But you're gonna see, those lines, and you're gonna see straight through to the white core of the mat board. Speaking of white core, I totally forgot before I attached my spine piece here to ink the edges of all of my panels, because in this case, I don't think the white core would be that bad, because there's actually some off-white ivory that is incorporated into this particular pattern. But on the whole, I think it just gives a slightly neater finish to ink those edges. And so before I forget, I'm gonna ink everything up, and the ink I'm using is actually from Graphic 45. It's a hybrid ink pad. This one's called Peachy Pink, and it's a slightly darker pink than what is in a lot of the prints from Cafe Parisian, but I think for edging it works really well because you do want a little bit, or at least I like the look of having a little bit of that vignetting around the outside edges. So I don't mind that this is a little bit of a darker pink than a lot of the pinks that you'll find in the pattern paper. The tough part to ink though is where the glue tabs are, just really getting in there, but it doesn't really have to be perfect, because especially the score lines that are on the sides, because we're going to actually cover that. The score lines that are at the bottom are going to be pretty hard to see anyways. So you don't have to aim for perfection. You just want to take away that stark white and help to just give it a little bit of a neater finish. Now, when I go to attach everything together, I do like to use a combination of dry adhesive tape and liquid adhesive. The dry adhesive tape is really fantastic because it's going to give you that instant stick, and that's going to hold everything in place, while the liquid adhesive has a chance to dry. But once that liquid adhesive is dry, it's going to give you a nice permanent bond, where the dry adhesive, and this is happens more or less just depending on the climate that you live in. More humid climates tend to cause dry adhesive tapes like this to actually completely dry and lose some of their stick, sometimes completely, and then things just fall apart. And so that's why I do like to use liquid adhesive whenever I'm making something that I really do want to last. And so especially if you want something to be really sturdy, like a box, you're not gonna, I don't know what I'll gift in this box just yet. Maybe some chocolates, maybe some greeting cards, handmade greeting cards, I'm not sure. But just depending on how sturdy I need this to be, I definitely want to use a nice strong adhesive that's going to hold up well. And especially since I'm giving it away, and I don't know when I do give it away what the gift recipient will use it for. So now that I have all of my side pieces attached end to end, I'm going to put, again, some more strong dry adhesive. This is just a red line tape. And I actually used the grid lines on my mat to square up the sides and the bottom. And what I did was along two stretches, I actually ran my red line tape so that it goes across that mitered corner. And just that little bit that just hangs over the edge to the opposite side, or not the opposite side, but the adjacent side, it helps to actually hold that 90-degree angle and makes it a lot easier to actually, you can see I'm just holding it by one side here, and all of the corners are holding their angle. And so that makes it really easy to attach this to the bottom of our box, and know that things are, even if they're not perfectly squared, they're close enough. And with handmade, I think you could aim for perfection, but I don't really think, for me, it's necessary, because part of the charm of something handmade is that it's one of a kind and it doesn't look, manufactured by a machine. So I always eyeball things, like you just saw a moment ago, where I just eyeballed, centering the sides of the box. Now, you could leave it like this, and I think that would look lovely on the inside. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill in that bottom a little bit. Before I get there, I will go ahead and reinforce all of these corners. Now this material that I'm using is called Tyvek. I buy it as wristbands that are 3/4 of an inch by 10 inches, and they come connected. Like you see this is actually it's actually some leftover of 2 strips that are connected. And I'm just cutting just little, maybe 1 inch stretches of them. And the reason to use a product like Tyvek is that this is material that you might be familiar with if you've ever seen a house being constructed, because when a house gets framed, it actually gets wrapped in a material like this because this is water resistant and it is resistant to tearing. And the resistance to tearing is fantastic for things like reinforcing. I use it a lot in mini albums, for example, where I use it to reinforce any hinge that folds back and forth, like a waterfall mechanism, or if you're doing a hinge, hidden hinge system to attach your pages. So anything that kind of folds back and forth, it's just paper after all, and paper can tear. But reinforcing or lining it with something like Tyvek is going to make it a little bit more durable over time. Now here, these corners aren't folding or opening at all. So you don't really have to do the step that I just did. However, the reason why I did it is because those corners, there's actually a little bit of thickness there, because that's where the mat board was actually cut through, and you can actually see the thickness of the mat board. And so you get a rather kind of like a really rough corner there with these really sharp edges coming together. And so just by lining a bit of Tyvek around those corners, it almost softens the corners a little bit more. And that's going to allow me to wrap some of this paper. I've just cut a couple of strips. This print is so perfect for this because the thickness or depth of the box is 1 inch. And that's the height of those side pieces. And the 1 inch strips, or these sort of postage stamp images, are just about 1 inch wide. So I'm gonna line all 4 edges of my box here with these strips, and it only takes 3 of these 8-inch strips, and I am using that the salvaged edge, or the branding edge at the top of the papers as a little bit of a cheat, because you'll see here I did tape that down, but I'm going to cover it as I overlap the next section of the next strip. And I'll do that with the third one too. So it just, again, helps you to stretch your papers just a little bit. And so I'll do that again where I left that top portion, the branding edge, or the salvage edge as I like to call it. And when I go to attach this piece, I'm going to overlap it right on top to cover the salvage edge, which leaves more of the print available. So it's a very little amount that you're saving, but I find, with paper as beautiful as this, whatever I can save is just more projects that I can make. So I mentioned earlier that I was going to level off the inside, and by that all I meant was that I want to add some of these scrap pieces of the very same mat board so that it brings the center of my box so that it's actually at the same level as all of those glue tabs. I lost a little bit of footage there, or maybe I just didn't hit the record button, but what I did off screen, as it turns out, was I just attached some pattern paper to the inside of the box, and with the spine, I attached the front cover to it. Now you might be wondering, why did I put Tyvek on the corners of my box here when those don't open and close, but I didn't put any Tyvek on my spine? The reason for that is because this material, I mentioned that it's called paper leather and it's by Craftex, but one of the properties of it that makes it unique is that it is very, very durable. It's basically also resistant to tearing. And this is material that you can put through the washing machine and it would hold up just fine. And so that's why I do like to use it for spines on projects like these, because it is so durable. And you can crumple it up and give it some texture if you want. I think it's kind of the idea of, why it's called paper leather is because while it's still made from paper, it's almost like leather in the sense of how durable it is, and also in the sense that you could crumple it up, you could distress it, and similar to leather, sometimes that just makes it look better. And so it has a little bit of that characteristic to it as well. And I've used it here on the closure that I've been working on, which has a magnetic clasp right on the side there. And so it's really fantastic, and that's why I'm using it for things like my spine piece and for that little closure, that little latch. And I don't have to worry about reinforcing it with something like Tyvek, because that material already is resistant to tearing. So off camera, I've also gone ahead and fussy cut out this image, and I wasn't exactly sure how much of it I would use, and so I tried to fussy cut and save as much as possible, but I like that some of the elements are out of frame on that left side there. And so I want to sort of continue that look of things running out of frame or into the frame, however you want to think of it, and just use some more of these strips, these postage stamp strips, as I like to think of them. And I'm giving it a little bit more of a distressed look by just tearing, the inside edge of it, but I'm going to run the bottom, and I'm going to add a strip to the top too. So in that case, the top, I just cut straight because I want it to go completely off the edge of the book. And with this piece, I want it to go off the top edge as well as the right hand edge, or the edge that has our spine. And I want to keep everything really consistent, and these papers are white core, so I'm inking the edges of these with some more Graphic 45 hybrid ink, this time in marine blue, because those postage stamps have a little bit of that blue border between them, so I think that works better to kind of hide the white core of the paper better than say the pink that I used on the box. And I decided last minute that I want to frame the inside of this pattern paper as well, just to make it look a little bit more, I feel like it makes it look a little bit more finished to have this frame, especially because it's a nice contrast between the stripy pattern and the pink of the mat board. And I love the pattern on the inside, because especially since when I decided that I was going to fill this with some chocolates, it's going to be funny to like eat all the chocolates and then see all of the pastries and the treats inside. It'll be a really nice reminder that, what was once gifted in this box. But I think on the whole, the box is really nice to have as a little trinket box. And like I said, it's a little bit of a 2-in-1. So here's a final look at it, all full with these Lindor chocolate truffles, and then here's a look at that finished inside. So that is my project for today, the book box decorated with Cafe Parisian. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you'll consider subscribing to the Graphic 45 YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you get notified whenever new videos get posted. Thanks again, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.